might turn the heat on for just a second. That door was left open. I think that you could, if you, like one way to do it, you can, I'm going to put both of them in y equals, but you could put this and then this. To me, I think I'm going to put this one, and then I'm going to put this one in the other. Does that make sense? Do y'all know what I did? I think either way you do it. You could put this in y equals and then one in the other. Or, look, I just moved that square root of x. Does everybody see that? I moved it over here. I added it over there. Are we okay with that? No.
Are you recording again?
I am, yes. It is recording. So, let me just type in the one that I changed it to first, and then if I need to, I can go back and type in the other one. I will type in the square root of 2x plus 1. It's all underneath it. And then the square root of x plus 1 not underneath it. Okay? So I'll zoom 6. Oh, it looks like they could intersect at 2 points, right? So you can look at your table and probably see where do they intersect at? At 0 and what? 4. At 0, 1. At x is 0 and x is 4. So you could look at your table. That's one way to do it. Or you can come back to your graph, and press second trace. Let's find where they intersect. And look, since my answer choices are here, I'm going to put inner right here close to 0. Is that an intersection? Yes, it is. Okay, let me try the other one. Second trace. I'm going to see if there's an intersection. I'm going to move it closer over here. And then let me press enter. And did it pick up 1 at 4? It did.
Why do you move it?
Well, because I was trying to see, okay, is it just 0 or is it at 0 and 4? So I tried, it did tell me that it was at 0, but let me move it over there closer to the number 4 where x is 4. If I move over 1, 2, 3, 4 and see if there's an intersection over there. And it did tell me there's 1 at 4. Or look, you can look in your table. There's an intersection at 0 because they have the same number. Is there an intersection at 4? Yes. So it's 0 and 4. And y'all, I'll try it without moving it around. I'm pretty sure it works. If I had done minus the square root of x, I mean, I know it'll work, but, and then down here, if I just did 1. So if I had put it in like this,
X plus 1.
I moved the square root of x over here. I added it over. But y'all, you didn't even have to. You can do the same thing here. Watch. I typed in without moving it around. Like that's the first equation and that's the second. And if I press second table, guess what they gave me again? Where do they have the same numbers? At 0 and at what? 4. So you see how either way, if I wouldn't have moved it around and I would have left it like that, it would have given me the same answer. How do we feel on that? Do we feel okay? Yeah, graphing, it's probably the easiest way. I don't think that one's on there. But again, at the end of class, I'll go over which ones for you to concentrate on. Any questions through number 8? Or on number 8? Yes, no? We're good? Okay, let me go on to number 9. And we'll go through these. Oh, Jaden. They borrowed. Are y'all gonna be here for news today? Did he tell y'all that somebody had to borrow the camera? So I took out the camera card in case y'all wanted to like edit or anything today. But they wanted to live stream their funeral today, and they didn't have a camera, and so they asked, and I asked them last night. So y'all won't be able to film, but y'all can use a camera card. Like I did take it out. So okay. So, okay, look, where are we at? Oh, number 9, sorry. Okay, number 9, it says f of x is 6x plus 7, and g of x is negative 4x minus 2. And what does it tell us to do? Look on your paper, it says f of x minus g of x. Does everybody see that? So I'm going to write the f function, f of x. Yes. Now, if I'm subtracting all of this, what does it do to both of those things? If I minus a negative, it changes it, right? So instead of writing minus 4x, what do I write? Plus, and instead of minus 2, what do I write? So again, what we've done is this right here. I'm subtracting all of that, so what does it do to both of those signs? It changed them to positive. Okay. You write down the first thing. The subtraction ones are the most difficult. Then I'm subtracting all of that. So it's like basically taking the negative of all that. So if I subtract negative 4x, what does that change to? Minus a negative changes to a plus sign. And then if I also subtract negative 2, it changes to a plus sign. Okay? So you had to subtract both of those things. It changed them. All right? Does that make sense, y'all? And then we just do exactly what it says now. What does that say? What is 6x plus 4x? 10x. And what is 7 plus 2? There you go. Okay? I don't know if this would help if you wanted to take f and subtract g like this. Would that be better? Take your f function and subtract it. Now type it in. What's 6 minus negative 4? Well, if you put it in your calculator, it's actually 10. And what's 7 minus negative 2? It's actually 9. Like if you want to line it up that way, you can, okay? Is that better for anybody? Okay. So if this is better to line it up, take your f function and subtract the g function. Just don't forget to subtract. Like just type it in. 6 minus negative 4, it is 10. 7 minus negative 2, it's actually positive 9. Okay, so I got 10x plus 9. All right, number 10 is the same thing. So I'm sure there's only going to be one of those on there. I'll tell you later which. But we take our f function and we again subtract our g function. Look, do you want to write it this way? Minus x minus 3. That's one way to write it. I would write it like this. Okay? But if you would rather write it like this way, your f function subtracting your g function. Okay? So what is 3x minus 1x? 2x. And careful here, what's 2 minus negative 3? Positive 5. That's your answer. Okay? And I would have written it like this, and I would have gotten the same thing. 3x minus x is 2x. 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay? So whichever way is easier. Okay, the next one. Y'all need a second? I see writing still. Okay, the next one, we take our f function and multiply the g function. So look, I'm just going to write this one times all of this one. Does that make sense? Like you just take that one and multiply it. So it's FOIL method. Can y'all tell that? Isn't that right? Isn't that number 11? Yes. So I'm going to distribute or FOIL. What's negative 7x times 5x? Negative 35x squared. Negative 7x times 4. negative 28x. 6 times 5x is 30x. And 6 times 4 is 24. And then what do you do with the two middle things? You combine them. So I think we get what? Plus 2x plus 24. And we've got two answers that it can be. And so we have to tell the domain, well, there's no square root and there's no fraction. So what is the domain going to be? It's all real numbers. There's nothing wrong with this one. It's fine. So your answer is A. Okay, because can x be negative? Yeah. Can x be 0? Yeah. Can x can be any number that you want to plug in. The only time it's not all real numbers is, say that I had that in the denominator. What's the one number x can't be? Negative 2. So that's when it changes. Or if it's a square root of, let's say, x minus 1, what's the one number? Or no, x has to be greater than what number? Or 1. It can't be anything less than 0. You can't. So I don't think there's any like this on the test, though, with a square root. Okay? I think if there's anything, it's a denominator. And we'll get to 1 in a minute. This one, no square root, no denominator. So guess what it is? It's all real numbers. Okay? The division ones, number 12 and 13, that's when we'll have a different domain. Okay. Are we good with number 11? Yeah. How many are there? I forget. 25? Okay. Number 12. So on number 12, we're dividing. So we write the f function in the numerator and the g function in the denominator. Is everybody good with that? So first of all, okay. Yeah, I can wait. Now, Hannah Catherine, since it's a fraction, what's the one number x cannot be? Look in the denominator. 2. So, and you can already tell your answer because of that. The domain is all real numbers except x can't equal 2. So now you can already tell what your answer is, right? But I still want to go through the whole problem. Is everybody good with that? So x cannot equal 2. I'll write that down. They write it all real numbers except for x equals 2. Now, on these, when you have division, you can simplify it. So let's look at the numerator. Is there a number that goes into 3 and 6? 3 does, right? So watch. I'm just going to divide it out, or we call that factor it out. So that would be x. And then what's 6 divided by 3? 2. Now, do y'all notice anything that cancels out?
X minus 2.
Yep, and that's why you're just left with that 3 right there. Now, where did this even come from? So, basically, you're trying to see if it'll match that. But basically, what's 3 times x? 3x. What's 3 times 2? 6. I just went the opposite way. I divided it out. I factored it out. I put the 3 here, and then I had to figure out what was left over. And it's going to be just like this on the test. It's going to match, okay? It's going to match. It's going to cancel out, and I put my 3 there, okay? Are we okay with that one? Kind of? So it's either going to be like number 12 or it's going to be like number 13. And I'll show you how number 13 is.
The x's and the negative 2's like cancel out.
Yeah, so because that's one thing right there. X minus 2 is one thing. And when we get to chapter 8, there's a ton of this. So I hope y'all are starting to get used to it. But like that's all we'll do in chapter 8. Okay, number 13, which we have a break before chapter 8. Number 13, we put function f up top and g in the bottom, right? So what does f say? It says x squared minus 9. And g function says x plus 3. So since we have a fraction, there's one number x can't be. What is it? Negative 3. X cannot be negative 3. So we have narrowed down our answer choices, right? Does everybody see why it can't be negative 3? Because what's negative 3 plus 3?
0.
0. You had to see what number makes that go to 0. So that's the one thing x cannot be. Now, let's factor. This one factors different. So it's either going to factor like number 12 where you pull a number out, or it's going to factor like number 13. Okay? Which x squared minus 9. What are we squaring? We're squaring x and what are we squaring right here? 3. And the whole middle term's canceled out. So do y'all remember that one of them is x plus 3? What's the other? X minus 3. And y'all, it's either going to factor this way. It's going to be the same thing. Okay, if it was x squared minus 16, what's that one going to be? X plus 4, x minus 4. What if it said x squared minus 25? What does that factor to? X plus 5, x minus 5. It's going to be something just like this or just like this up here, okay? Now, anyway, let's finish this. What happens to the x plus 3? That cancels out. So what's the only thing left? X minus 3. That's my answer. And that's my domain. Okay, so what is that? A? It is. 13 is A. I'll write down 14. I wrote it down 2 different ways. Do y'all need a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll leave that up there. Are we good? Okay, so on this one, we're going to take our, when it's written like this, we take our g function and we plug it into the f function. So I'm going to take this right here and put it where the x is, all of it. Okay, so let me just write this down. And so I'm going to take 2, and what all do I write for x now? 4x minus 6. And then what comes next? That's my 2, that's my function, plus 7. Okay? Is everybody good with that? I just took that whole function and put it into the f function, where the variable is. All right, so now, instead of x, what can I plug in? What number do they tell me to use? -1. So I'll just rewrite that. That's 4 times -1 minus 6. Okay? What is 4 times -1? Or you could probably just type that whole thing. I wonder if it'll work just typing it in like that. 2 times 4 times -1 minus 6. I don't know if it gives the right answer. We'll see. Let's see if that gives us the right answer. I like to go step by step. That's -4 minus 6. What is -4 minus 6? -10. What's 2 times -10? And -20 plus 7 is -13. See how my calculator, it just worked it all out for me. I think we have another one of those. down 15. F of x is x plus, equals x plus 2, and g of x is x squared. Two ways to write that. Okay, so they want me, are y'all ready or y'all need a second? Y'all are ready? Okay, here's 15. This time it's backwards. We take the f function, the one that's listed second, and we plug it into the g function. So I'm going to plug all of that in for x. So instead of x squared, I just write x plus 2 squared. Does everybody understand that? I just took that whole function and wrote it right there. And then what do they tell me to put for x? Negative 4. So I have negative 4 plus 2 squared. So I have negative 2 squared, which is what?
4.
Positive 4. And you could probably just type it in just like that. Watch. Negative 4 plus 2 squared. 4. Check on your calculator. Okay? Number 16. Okay, they give us on number, y'all need a second? No? Okay. On number 16, they give us this table, and they said, first of all, is this a function? So do any of my x's repeat? So yeah, it's a function. It's good to go. So the first thing you're going to say is yes, or they put relation t is a function. All right, so the first one is yes. I think you can already tell your answer. Then they ask me about the inverse. What do I do for the inverse, y'all? Yeah, you switch them. So let me write negative 4, 3, 7, and 5 up here. And then the other one's down here. Do any of these repeat on my x values? No, so this one's a function. Yep, it's good to go. So what's our answer for 16? Looks like it's B. Okay. Number 17. Oh, we're doing great on time. All right, 17. It has y equals 4x plus 4. So what do I do to find the inverse? What did we just do on the other ones? We switched them. So I would write this right here. But then we have to solve for y. So how do you solve for y? Subtract 4, so I'm just going to write x minus 4 equals 4y. And then what do I do? Yeah, divide everything by 4. So they may have it written different, so we'll just have to see. I'm just dividing every little thing by 4. So I have 1x over 4. What is 4 over 4? 1. And then that goes to 1y. So which one looks like that? Which one has a 1/4 with an x and a minus 1? C. So make sure you understand. They wrote it like this. 1/4 x minus 1. That's what they wrote. See, we had x over 4. That's basically 1/4 with my x minus 1 equals y. Do y'all understand that? Okay, do you understand how to get x over 4 minus 1 equals y? Did you understand that part?
I get the divide by 4, but in my head I would divide x minus 4 by 4 and have it as 1.
Okay, so you did this right here. You got x minus 4 over 4. Right? So basically, and you don't see that answer, so you have to split it up. You have to put the 4 with the x and with the 4. They don't want it all together as one big fraction. So watch me split it up. I just put it under each of them. Does that make sense? I put it with each, because x is over 4 and the 4 is still over 4, right? Now, This, like, what is 4 over 4? 1. So you know it's minus 1. And then this is basically, which one of those looks like 4 is in the denominator? Well, it's either B or C. Does that make sense now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's just how you would match it. That's 1/4 x minus 1. It's just a different way to write it. And I can't remember which ones are on there. I'll go back in a minute. We're getting close to being done. Okay, 18, they write that weird. They write f to the negative 1. Guess what that means? Find the inverse. Did y'all know that? Do y'all remember that? On number 18, this right here says, hey, here's your function. Find the inverse. Okay, and is it a function? All right, so here's our function. Let's find the inverse. Okay, so I'm going to use the letters y and x though. Is everybody okay with where I got the y from? Instead of writing f of x, you can just write y. Okay, and then I wrote down exactly what they gave me. Then what do you do to find the inverse? You switch them, right? So I'm going to put x, and then I'm going to put 8 minus 3y, and then squared. Now, how do you get rid of a square? You square root. So I will get the square root of x. And what do I do with that square root of x? What do I have to put in front of it? A plus or a minus. Do we remember that? And then I get 8 minus 3y. And now we just have to keep solving for y. I have to move my 8 and then my 3. How do I move the 8? Subtract 8. So I noticed that they put the 8s first, so I'll write negative 8 first. Okay? Then what do I do? Divide by what? Negative 3. And look, they do a big fraction. They divided it by negative 3. Okay?
How do you know if you can or can't?
It just, well, on number 17, I would not have minded if you left it like that. They just didn't have that answer choice. So you had to change it. Number 18, I could split that up or I can leave it whole. I just look at their answer choices and see how they left it. Okay, that's all I did. I just looked at their answer choices. Now, here's the only thing. What do you notice here? I have a negative over a what? What's a negative over a negative? So what they do is they put 8 plus or minus x, and they change that to 3. Okay? Because that plus or minus sign is there. There's no change in anything. All right, so that's the first part. Which one matches that? It's either A or D. Okay? Now, what did y'all learn about the square roots on what they look like? What do they look like? A sideways what? Anybody know? Parabola. So this is what the positive one looks like. We're not even going to graph it on our calculator. I'm not going to waste my time. This is what a negative one looks like. Don't I have a positive and a negative? Yeah? Does that pass the vertical line test? It's not a function. Okay? When you have, and it's going to be like that if that one's on your test. If you have a plus or minus square root, it's not a function. Because if you have one going up and one coming down, it does not pass the vertical line test.
So what's the plus or minus before the square root of x?
Like right here, like why did I put it here? Because anytime you take the square root, you have to put the plus or minus sign. Because it's saying, let me see, when I do the square root under here, I'm trying to think what I...
Wait, so if you have a plus or minus, it's never going to be a function.
Yeah, like when you have a plus or minus the square root of x, or plus or minus the square root of any, like x minus 2 or whatever, it's not going to be a function. like the rule was just when you take the square root of x, you have to put a plus or minus sign. Now thinking on y, I think it kind of goes with that when that top number was even. Remember, like that rule up there, if the number is even in the numerator, then you have the positive or the negative. Well, I think it's because, I'm trying to think, but the top number is not really your root. Give me a second to think this through so I can explain it. Okay, I got it. Pretend it was a 4. Okay, pretend I had the number 4. And then I took the square root of it. We kind of did learn this. It could be a positive 2 could be under there, or a negative 2, right, if it was also squared. Because what's positive 2 squared? 4. What's negative 2 squared? 4. So I'm thinking maybe that's why, because you square, I don't know, honestly, why it's that rule. Let me come back to the reason on it. Right now, just accept it as a rule. It's accepted as a rule, but I want to be able to tell you why. But I'm going to need a second. Okay. Don't let me forget to come back to that. All right. So number 19. Did everybody understand why it's not a function? Yes, because if you were, you could go and graph them, y'all, and look at your graph. But your graph is going to look like a sideways parabola. Okay, if that one's on your test and you have the square root, it's going to look like a sideways parabola. And it's not a function. I'll go through which ones are on there shortly. Okay, getting through number 19 now. Number 19, they have y equals, I'm just changing it to y equals the square root of x minus 3. And they want me to find the inverse. Okay, is everybody okay with, what do we do for the inverse? You switch them. So I'm putting x equals the square root of y minus 3. Now, how in the world do I solve that? How do I get rid of that square root? So I square it. So I have x squared equals y minus 3. Then what do I do? Add 3. And we're halfway done. Then it talks about some range thing, and I'll explain. So x squared plus 3. So it's either A or it's C. Okay? Now, let's go back to our original problem. I guess this problem right here. This is where we're going to look. For the range, what does y have to be? Like, what number can y not be? Can y be 2? It has to be positive 3 or bigger. Okay? Because what happens if you have a negative under the square root? It doesn't work. So it's C. And just look at their answers. They say, okay, it has to be greater than or equal to 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. Yes, it has to be greater than or equal to that. Okay? That's why it's C. Because if I plugged in 3 minus 3, that's 0. So it has to be greater than or equal to 3. It's basically going to be whatever number's right here, y'all. If that said minus 4, what would we have? Y is greater than or equal to 4. If that said minus 5, what would it be? Y is greater than or equal to 5. Okay? Now we're looking at number 1. And I think I did number 4. Okay, let's look at number 1. I'll probably just have one of these, either 1 or 2. But let me go through them. I'll just graph them on the calculator. Let me clear it out. So the square root of x plus 1. Make sure it's not under the root. Like, just have it just like theirs. And I knew it was going to move up 1. All right? So I just need some points. So I'm going to plot 3 of these points, and I'm done. Let's see. 0, 1. over 1 and up 2. And what's my last point I'm going to use?
4, 3.
4, 3. And then, there we go. That's it for that one. Does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe so. This one up. Okay, where is this one gonna move? I'll graph it in just a second, but does anybody know where they think it's gonna move? Yeah, to the right too. It's gonna start right here. But if you don't know that, that's fine. Just press y equals, and you type in the square root of x minus 2. And all of it is under the root. So be careful with that. And look at that. It moved to the right too. So let's look up some other numbers that it gives us. 3, 1, and 6, 2. Over 3 and up 1. Over 6 and up 2. It's off the chart a little bit. That's okay. There you go. How are those? We want tons of those on there. Alright, let's see. Next up. Oh, number 3. Graph that and its inverse. So on this one, I'll go ahead and graph it. That's half of it. 4x squared plus 3. Everybody good with that? I just typed in y equals 4x squared plus 3. And I'm going to graph. And that's what it looks like. But I need to look at my table of values. Is everybody okay with that? I'm going to press second graph. And let's just pick a few numbers. Looks like I'm going to have to go to the 7s, but that's okay. We'll make do. So I have -1 and 7. Let's pretend that's right here. I'll do it in red so y'all can see it since it's up there. So -1, 7. Let's pretend that's right there. 0, 3, and 1, 7. And that's my parabola. Is everybody okay with the first part? Guess the easiest way to do the inverse. What do you do with those x and y values? You switch them. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to put 7, -1 together, 3, 0 together, and then 7, 1 together. Does everybody know where I got those numbers from? All I did was I took these and I switched them. Now I'm going to graph those. And then that'll be my inverse. Okay? Which is a square root thing, but we don't have to even do that. If I go over 7 and down 1, over 3 and stay there, over 7 and up 1, and it's a sideways parabola, which y'all should be getting the hang of that now, right? When you do the inverse, it, for some reason, it just goes like to the side. That's all you need. You don't even have to solve for anything if you don't want to, okay? Are we okay with that? Maybe? I just let my calculator graph that one, and then I found the inverse. I just switched the ordered pairs around. I'm going to skip number 4. We already did that one yesterday. Okay? Is anybody still working on this one? No? Y'all are good? Okay. So number 5. Number 5 says we add these two functions. So if you want to, I'll just take my f function. I'll write that one down. And then I'll add what's my g function? 7x plus 3. Line them up. That may be easier to write it like that. Then let's just add. What's -4 plus 7? That's me 3x. And what's 5 plus 3? Okay. That's all it is. I just added them together. Okay, then the last one, it says find the inverse. What do you do for the inverse? You switch your x and y. So it's going to say x equals 6y squared minus 8. Then what do we do to solve? It's getting warm in here. You add 8 to both sides. There we go. So I'm going to add a. So I have x plus 8 equals 6y squared. Then what do I have to do?
Square.
You're gonna divide first and then square root it. Okay, so divide by 6. And look, since this one's short answer, I'm just gonna leave my problem like Hannah Catherine, like you like to leave them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm just gonna leave it x plus 8 over 6 equals y squared. Alright, I'm almost done. Now what do we have to do? Square root. And anytime, Jaden, we square root it, what do we have to put? Plus or minus. And I'm about to, I know it's easy. I don't know why I can't think of the reason. So it's, you have to square root that whole thing. And that's our answer. Like I would square root this and that. And you just have, it could be positive or it could be negative. I think it's exactly like what I was saying. Like for 16, like if I had the number 16 and I square rooted it, I could square a positive 4, or that's exactly what it is. Okay, yeah. I don't know why I was second guessing myself, but that's the reason. And you can tell anytime you square root, that's when you're going to do that. What was it? I think 2 problems on here. Now, y'all, let me go through and tell y'all which ones to like concentrate on. Do y'all want me to do that? And then if we have questions, or like y'all can just take the rest of class to go over things on your own. Let me see. Okay, there's one. I told y'all some of them already, but I'll just start from the beginning. There's one like number 1 and 3 and 5 and 6 and 7. I think I told y'all that yesterday. 1, 3, 5, 6, and 7. And then it's like number number 9. There's a subtraction one. Let me keep going. And then a multiplication one. So number 11. Number 13. It'll factor like number 13. Okay. And then it looks like I've got a 14 and 15. Number 16. And then we do have 17 and 18. And y'all, it's the same exact type of problem. Like literally the only thing different on number 18 is instead of an 8, it's a different number. So it will work out identical. Okay? So don't let that one like scare you. I'm telling you, it is so similar. That was number 18. 17 is on there. And 17, one of the numbers changed and that's it. Like it will be so similar. Okay. Number, let's see. Oh, that one's not on there. Okay, 19's not on there, sorry. Then I have number, like on the short answer, number 1. And then I did number 3. Number 4. And number 6. I should have put 5 on there. And that's it. Is that 17 problems? I think I might be like 7.
It's
17. So what I might do for y'all